ground and pound. That was from the top. Heel hooking, no more plot to leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest. Sitting on the top, and I'm laughing at the fools who think they coming for the spot. You ain't got a fucking shot. It's already mine. You can't never fucking stop. You know I stay on the grind. Broken bones and black eyes, they just part of the life. Haymaker MMA, we taking over your mics. No sleeping, bloody knuckles. It's nothing to the hustle. I'll be fighting till I die. Every day is still a struggle. I made it out the rubble. My knees they never buckle. I came here for a fight, but I'm ready for a rumble. So you gotta feel the chaos we've been leaving behind. Cause ain't nothing going down that I didn't design. But it's time to start the show, so extinguish the flame. Haymaker MMA, we going straight for your brain. Yeah.
And welcome back to Haymaker MMA. We are live, coming back at you with episode 5. I am your host, EJ Reed, along with my co-host, Aaron Admire, Steve Johnson. We got producer Jay on the ones and twos. How the hell y'all doing, fellas?
Great.
I'm pretty good, man. Feeling good.
Excited about the weekend. A lot of good stuff coming.
Yeah. Of course, we got the big card. Anything else going on for y'all this weekend?
Boxing too, man. We got boxing on this weekend. It's going to be about, I think, 85 degrees this weekend in Kansas City. So I'm going to try to smoke something, smoke something, man, smoke something.
Word. It is May and spring is among us. What do y'all like doing for like spring activities, man? Like as far as like barbecuing or going out to the water? Like what's y'all's spring routine?
That I do it all, man. I'm always smoking something, kayaking, fishing down at the lake, just outside. It might just be sitting there staring at the sky.
What about you, Steve?
Same here. I like going on hikes, definitely to the cave locally that lives near us in Como, and just be outside, feel the breeze, especially spring all the way into summer. I like to be outside. Been in the house for too long.
I hadn't cracked out the grill yet. I know, Admire, you've been grilling some lately.
Yep.
You had some pork burgers or?
Yeah, I made pork burgers last night. They're pretty shit. Dude, I keep on making the mistake of grabbing ground pork instead of ground beef. Like I've done it a few times now, and I don't even notice until I'm halfway done cooking it. It's like, oh, fuck, that ain't beef. That's fucking sausage. So I made them into burgers last night. They're not good. Just imagine a sausage patty the size of a burger. There's not enough ketchup, mustard, and cheese to fix it.
That's interesting because I've had turkey burgers, and of course it's not beef, but it's pretty decent. I think ground
turkey's
pork
good.
I think ground pork would be like similar, but you're saying no.
I didn't like it.
Well, I'll cross that off the list of things to buy. Ground pork, that's off the list this summer. But
yeah, don't do it.
I'm gonna break out the smoker soon. I don't think I'll do a brisket this summer, man, because it's only me by myself. So that's a lot of meat for one person, and it takes all day.
And it's expensive if you mess it up. Like I've smoked 2 briskets now, and I did not like the way they turned out. So I'm like, I'm not doing that again. You're dropping $40 minimum for a small one.
Yeah, that's for a small one. I think the last one I bought, it was like $50-$60. And I was eating brisket for weeks after that. So I think I'll do a middle ground, break out some ribs maybe in the next few weeks.
Yeah, kick it off with the ribs.
All right, well, let's get into some news stories around the crazy world of MMA. I'll kick it off. So a report by Bleacher Report that ONE Championship is out of the Francis Nganou business. They talked to ONE Championship CEO Chatri Sityong, and he confirmed that he met with Francis Nganou early in the week, and they are withdrawing the process of bidding for Francis Nganou. And rumor has it that he may be close to signing with PFL. So I got a question for you two. Do you think it was a mistake for Francis Nganou to leave the world of UFC?
Yeah, for sure. He's not going to make that kind of money anywhere else, get that kind of exposure. He he can't become a big star again, being on the PFL or ONE FC. It's a big downgrade for him. I mean, it's like if an NFL player was to go play in the CFL, you forget about that person. You never think about them again. And the same thing would happen to him. Is there good fights for him over there? I don't know. I can't even name one heavyweight over there.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I cannot think of one heavyweight that is in PFL. What do you think about it, Steve?
Well, could be true. And I also heard a response of Ngannou. He said they were two-faced anyway and manipulative. So that's what I heard from Ngannou. I guess they outbidded each other, and I think they're too stubborn to give in to each other. Because I can't imagine giving up a massive commodity like Ngannou.
I wonder how much money PFL has, because they've been around for a while, because they were a World Series of Fighting before they changed their rebranded to PFL. But you think a company like that would have to shell out a bunch of bucks to get him. So I'm curious if they do land him, if the rumors are true and they do land him, like how much they be paying for this guy.
It'll be a lot. They'll pay him, and they'll probably do it as like a big gamble. They'll probably overpay him, thinking that he's going to be a big draw, and they're going to try to keep him busy to make that money back. But, are they going to keep fans there if he's just walking over tomato cans?
Yeah, I mean, but so many times people will tune in if you're just grabbing some guy out of the auto shop and fighting him off the street. So
yeah, what I could see them doing is if they do sign him, I bet they sign like an older legend heavyweight, and like Big Nogueira or somebody like that, or Ben Rothwell that fights in bare knuckle, and bring him over there to fight Ngannou. Something that Dana White wouldn't have set up for him, just to have that big breakthrough show for him, announcing him to their company. I could see them doing that.
Yeah, that would be they would have to get somebody as big. I think UFC has the biggest players, and I think anybody we know as of heavyweight, I can't think of. I think it would be an execution as far as Ngannou. And I think that's maybe what's going on. Plus, how much influence does Dana have to where you look how fighters exit the organization? What if that put a bad taste in these other organizations' mouth? How he left, won the championship, and then dipped. They don't know if that's going to happen in their organization.
I think they're just happy to have him, because how many fighters have left the UFC on bad terms and still went other places? There's been people that refused to fight, wanted out of their contract. There's people that's been dropped for, outside of the cage stuff, So I don't think they're worried about him dipping if he wins a championship. I think what Ngannou should have done and should be doing is pushing for a fight with like Deontay Wilder, a boxing match.
Yeah, that's his biggest excitement for him, or Tyson Fury, whatever they're trying to do. But definitely boxing, and I don't think anybody outside of the UFC organization is a big draw for him as far as MMA.
So I have mixed feelings about this, because if he was really telling the truth and he was just betting on himself and trying to get better pay for fighters, then kudos to him. But on the other hand, I think he might have got a little bit too big for his britches and overshot his shot with how much he was worth out there, because he had that money fight with John Jones if he would have just sat still in the UFC. And maybe somebody gave him a broken promise with the boxing world, because he was trying to get that fight with Tyson Fury. And it looks like they're going to have like a little mini tournament with the boxers. It's supposed to be Tyson Fury versus Usyk and on the main event. And then it's supposed to be Wilder and Anthony Joshua on the co-main event. I guess winners fight each other or whatever.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in Abu Dhabi. And so Ngannou is the odd man out. He probably should have got a firm offer before he left if that was his goal of going to boxing.
I never heard. Does anybody know how much he was asking from the UFC? Because that's a hard one for me to, like, I understand a lot of the releases Dana White does, but letting your, baddest ass heavyweight just walk, he had to be asking for an ungodly amount.
He was asking probably for an ungodly amount, but he was asking for health insurance. And as messed up as it is, he knows that UFC wasn't going to give him any health insurance. The independent contractors, which is messed up. I think fighters should get a union, but that's a story for a different show. But he knows that they weren't going to give him health insurance. I don't know. Did you hear about any numbers, Steve?
No, I have, that's what I've heard too. They've been asked, the odds are like, what amount are you willing to go outside of our fathomability that you couldn't stay in the UFC? And
so
it makes you wonder.
I just looked it up, and it is released that he was offered $8 million for a 3-fight contract, and he got to fight John Jones. $8 million for 3 fights isn't bad because, I think Connor's biggest, purse was like $1 million or something like that. Over $1 million's a lot per fight.
And he would have got pay-per-view points for being in the main event.
Now that you said those 3 fights, he should have did that, in which I can't remember who said, but they had the opinions of Ngannou, who may have been scared of that John Jones fight. Who knows?
Yeah, I've heard a couple people say that, but he was already the best at heavyweight. He already beat pretty much everybody at least once. He would have got the chance to take out John Jones, who's, everybody's number 1 fighter of all time. It kind of does look like he's scared because everything was in his court. He was going to get paid. He could have left a legacy. He was already, building a legacy. He's scared.
So that segues us into the second part of this. It's reported that after the Stipe fight that John Jones may retire. How do y'all feel about this? You think that he should retire after this Miocic fight?
No, I don't think he should. If he wants to be, a great heavyweight, there's a guy up there that he has to fight, man. And I think this guy could beat him. Sergey Pavlovich, dude's a beast. He's a big guy. And John Jones, he's a long fighter. They always talk about his 84.5-inch reach is the biggest of all time. Pavlovich has an 84-inch, just a half-inch shorter. Trouble for Jones.
Steve?
Definitely, since Ngannou left the heavyweight, when you don't have the wrestling up to par or whatever, you have to even it out. And Sergio Pavlovich has that equalizer that we equivalate to Ngannou. I think that's his biggest. I have to look at some fights with Sergio Pavlovich's wrestling, but definitely can be an equalizer with his power. Because I've been, Curtis Blades a weekend ago. He knocked out somebody else before that. He's got one hitter quitter power.
Yeah. So I don't think John Jones should retire if he beats Stipe. That's an if. Stipe's a gamer too.
But then again, these veteran fighters don't like giving credit to somebody who ain't paid the way and, ain't been there for a while or just popped up. I think these legendary fighters are looking for legendary fights. And who knows? I think he's more likely to beat Stipe because it equalizes everything that has to be questioned. He just wants to shut Cormier down. Cormier fought Stipe. He haven't fought Stipe. So if he does this, it just all the butter on all the cake, or the icing on all the cake. And then retire.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Steve. What's in it for John Jones if he fights Pavlovich? Pavlovich just doesn't have a name like that, so it's not a big reward for the risk he's going to take. He does like at this
Definitely.
point, John Jones is a legend. He's looking for money fights. So after he beats Stipe, what's the point of fighting Pavlovich and Admire?
Just because Sergey Pavlovich, man, he's at the top of the food chain right now. I mean, what's Stipe ranked? I don't remember. I think
He's like
Stipe
two or three.
2 or 3. I mean, John Jones say he beats Stipe and Stipe's 2 or 3. Who's number 1 though? Pavlovich. He's got. I mean, just because you're beating Stipe doesn't mean you're the king of the heavyweight.
And then you have all these people on the internet, these internet keyboard warriors saying that John Jones is scared of Pavlovich. Jones is not scared of Pavlovich. Jones has faced plenty of fighters that had that power like that light heavyweight. Rampage was a guy, one hitter quitter type guy. It's all about name value and money. Come on now. So until somebody beats John Jones, I'll believe it. John Jones grappling is out of this world. You think he's just going to sit there and stand in front of Pavlovich and let him just hit him like that?
I don't know. It'd be interesting because I don't know if John can, wrestle a guy that's that big.
He took down Gane with ease.
Yeah, but
Gane is a big guy.
And then also Gane defended Nganou takedowns and grappling during the fight. Until later he just scooped him. But like I said, I mean, MMA is crazy. The only thing Popovich has is am I saying this right? But anyways, he has a power, but does he have wrestling? And John Jones is just all he has to do is dip under it.
Yeah, Pavlovich's not a grappler. He's a stand-up guy. So once you get dragged in those waters, you drown in that deep end.
And I can't remember what his loss was.
I can't remember either.
I'm pulling him up now because I'm pretty sure he's got a good ground game. I think he's one of them Russian Sambo guys.
It says he's Greco-Roman wrestling. So
Okay.
maybe the wrestling cancels each other out, but it's different from jiu-jitsu. And I feel like John Jones' jiu-jitsu game is underrated.
Sergey's one loss was to Alistair Overeem
By TKO.
by TKO 7 years ago. 5 years ago.
And we don't have on record John Jones losing besides the bullshit DQ with the 12-6 elbows.
You're a legal guy. I don't know if they can do this in sports, but I know with like a criminal record, they can, expunge stuff and get it wiped from the record. I wonder if there's a way Jones can have that re-looked at and have that removed from his record, at least make it a no contest, get the one off there.
He's been trying to do that for years, and they said they've progressed with it going on, but I don't know what's the status of it today, but I'm sure they're appealing and whatnot. I don't know how it pertains when it comes to sports and stuff like that, appealing something like that, but everybody knows it's bullshit that he has a loss, quote unquote, on his record.
Oh yeah, he was beating the shit out of Matt Hamill that entire fight, just tossing him around like a rag doll.
And I think how maybe that works behind the scenes, because Dana said he's been working for it too. I think they didn't like Steve Mazzagatti. That's what his name, right? Steve Mazzagatti.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't like him, so I think to the board of athletics, I bet you they sent complaints, and I bet you that's what is probably pending. Or if there is a case still going on, I bet you they've been sent so many complaints because he messed up more than in that fight right there. So I bet you they got a lot of people to complain, and they're just pending that case out. And hopefully, I would like him to get that win back or a no contest.
Yeah. Real fans know that it wasn't a real loss, but we'll see how all of these stories play within the next few months. What you got for us, Admire?
Oh, what was mine? The fighter profile. Let me pull him up here because I want to see if you can guess who it is. And I'm not gonna go. I didn't go with a fighter that is on everybody's top 10 all time list. This guy, just to me, is what fighting was all about. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and let's see if you can guess who he is. He's from Boston, Massachusetts. He fought in the lightweight division. He has wins over Diego Sanchez, Takanori Gomi, Michael Chiesa, Mac Danzig, Jamie Varner, Melvin Gillard, and Gabe Rudiger and Jeremy Stevens. If it helps, he has lost to the likes of Jim Miller in a very bloody way. He lost to Evan Dunham, Ali Aquina, Michael Johnson, Jim Miller again, and Anthony Pettis. He no longer fights. His last fight was 2019 on the Reyes Weidman card.
I have no clue. I'm stumped.
Yeah, I can't.
All right. So the fighter I'm talking about here is Joe Lozon.
Huh.
You guys remember him?
Yeah, definitely.
He's still fighting, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope. His last fight was in 2019.
Yeah, Joe Lozon, he's like one of those reliable fighters you could put on a co-main event on a fight night card, maybe even main event a fight night card, have him as the curtain jerker on a pay-per-view. He's always been Mr. Reliable.
Yeah. So the reason I selected him for, a fighter profile here is the way that he burst on the scene. So they set Joe Lozon up. He was, in a bunch of smaller promotions. And then the UFC brought him in to get his ass kicked by Jens Pulver, who was, a lightweight champion back in the day. And Joe Lozon, this unknown kid, knocked out Jens Pulver in 45 seconds when he was just supposed to get his ass kicked. Well, the UFC did not give him a contract or anything for that and made him go through the Ultimate Fighter. So if you remember, he was on the Ultimate Fighter. So he was on BJ Penn's team. The opposite coach was Jens Pulver, a guy that he already beat. I thought that was like a big kick in the nuts by the UFC. You beat this guy, and then you make me go on the show to compete against him when I beat him. It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of Joe Lozon, the version of Masvidal was hood street fights, right? Well, the opposite of that was Joe Lozon, who held suburbial fights. And if you look at the footage online, he used to fight his brother, and there's still footage of it. And they used to go at it and have neighborhood fights and where they live. So since you mentioned Joe Lozon, I just thought that was funny to mention.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos of him fighting his own brother, Dan Lozon, out there.
And Lozon, he's a straight up Boston guy. He parked the car by the garage, like that thick Boston accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Irish Whip, man. He actually had Joe Lozon's coach on his podcast.
That's what's up. I want to, if he didn't retire yet, I definitely wouldn't mind seeing Joe Lozon in the near future banging it out.
Yeah, I don't know if he got released or what the story is, but I know he lost 3 of his last 4. He was kind of on the downhill. He even got knocked out by Clay Guida.
Ooh,
but the thing, I always loved Joe Lozon fights, though, because it was going to be violent. It was either him beating the shit out of somebody or him getting the shit beat out of him. I mentioned the Jim Miller fight. When he fought Jim Miller, he was just busted all to hell within the first minute. I mean, just blood everywhere. He TK'd Diego Sanchez. That was huge. That was an awesome fucking fight. So yeah, that's my guy.
That's what's up. Steve, what story you have for us this week?
Story of what happened this week in MMA?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if you saw the bare knuckle fight, the damage and Luke's face or mouth. But since speaking of that, I had to mention that. But Connor there, and is he publicity hungry? I don't understand. I don't see Connor with the amount of money he makes going to bare knuckle fighting. What do you guys think about that? I don't know.
I'm glad you brought this up because this is Admire's story as well about bare knuckle. So we'll start off with the Connor thing. I don't know what Connor's doing right now. He hopped in the ring. He grabbed the belt. I think it's just a publicity stunt. I don't see a man like Connor going into bare knuckle boxing, risking his health. You saw how bad those fighters were cut up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was publicity too. Like, he's under contract with the UFC. I can't remember what his last contract was, but I think he signed like an 8-fight deal or something a couple years ago. So I'm sure Dana's got him pretty locked up, but they probably said, hey, we'll pay $1 million to get in here, jump around, make some noise, get people excited. But, like you said, he's got enough money. He don't want to get punched in the face by a bare fist, man. Like, that's a brutal sport. And I was telling EJ this weekend, I think bare knuckle fighting is the next big thing, and it seems harsher because there's no gloves, but the fights don't last as long and you're not getting that repeated, just beating in the head. It ends usually after just a couple punches.
You got to pick your shots too. And sometimes bone and everything, they definitely pick their shots in that type of sport. And I think it brings back old school, the origins of it. So like you said, I think it may be something on the rise.
So this is a question Admire asked me. I'm going to ask you, Steve. You think bare knuckle will gain enough juice eventually to overtake the UFC in popularity?
If that's the case, Dana's going to open up his own knuckle division. Slap fighting.
Yeah. My thought behind it'll be bigger is just if you look at most MMA fans that go to the fights and show up live, they are the ones that want to see the knockouts and the blood and stuff like that. So anybody who gets bored with the ground game and stuff, this is the sport for them. You're still going to have the, people that want to see some wrestling and jujitsu and stuff like that. But I would say 60 to 70% of fans are there to watch people just bang, bleed, get knocked out.
So I think that bare knuckle definitely, has a chance of being a niche. But I don't think it's a novelty like slap fighting because that's just a shit show. But I think they have a chance to be in its own niche because they got a lot of buzz because they had a lot of UFC fighters on that card. But the thing about MMA, what's so intriguing about MMA and then UFC is you have so many disciplines. And I know, like you said, sometimes the ground game is boring, but those fighters that just lay and hump on people, they don't go far. You don't see them get title shots that often. So what's intriguing about MMA is so many ways to win. Because when you have an exciting ground fighter that grounds and pounds and tries to go for a submission, that's just as exciting as a stand up and bang type of fight. So
yeah.
I think bare knuckle, like you said, will have its niche, but I don't know if it'll ever surpass UFC, but it has a chance of, being up there as a watchable thing that people go to. And I think to plant themselves as a mainstay in the combat sports realm, they have to build their own stars up because right now they're just building these cards up around former boxers and UFC fighters. So as soon as they build their own star from scratch, then they'll be really legit.
But I think what's going to happen, what you'll see is a bunch of UFC fighters and other MMA fighters go over there. Because if you take somebody like Jorge Masvidal, great stand-up fighter and striker, but not that great on the ground, bare knuckle would be his bread and butter. I mean, that's where he started fighting on the Kimbo, shit. If you look at several other fighters that prefer the stand-up game, this is the sport for them. Bare knuckle. They know they're not going to get taken down and exposed. They're not going to get submitted. They get to do what they like to do, just like Mike Perry. not a great MMA fighter, but he is the perfect guy for a bare knuckle fight that just likes to swing and throw bombs, will take a punch to land one. You're going to get a lot of those type of guys that like to scrap, just go over there.
Yeah, I had fun watching the card. It was, a lot of blood. So I hope it continues to, rise up the ranks on what people view. They keep on putting exciting fights. But
yeah, I mean, we didn't even mention Chad Mendez and Eddie Alvarez fight. That was incredible. I mean, them guys were just laying a bomb after bomb and stood, they knocked each other down. I think Mendez knocked Eddie down twice. And man, it was awesome. If anybody hasn't watched it, go back and find the bare knuckle fights from last weekend.
For sure. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will start breaking down this fight this weekend. So stay tuned. Haymaker MMA. We'll be back.
And it's been a while since I could alright.
All right, we are back. Haymaker MMA. Let's get into it, fellas. UFC 288 this weekend. Not a lot of hype for this fight this weekend from outside eyes. How do y'all feel about it? Y'all excited for the card this weekend?
Yeah, for me, definitely. There's a lot of good fights on this card. Kind of excited to see Kron Gracie fight, man. He hasn't fought for like 4 years.
I think it was a lot. Did he lose his last fight? Probably. Not a mistake.
I think he did.
I think it was he got exhausted, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, it was that one. Let's see. Kron Gracie.
Yeah, he was hyped up to big hopes.
Yeah, he lost to Cub Swanson last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that fight.
Yeah, I feel like this is the kind of a hardcore fans type of card. So we'll start from early prelims and make our way up. In the early prelims, you have Daniel Santos versus Johnny Munoz, Joseph Holmes versus Claudio Ribeiro, Rafael Estevam versus Zaglas Zumagulov, Phil Hawes versus Ikram Azarov, and Braxton Smith versus Parker Porter. So not a lot of big names on the early prelims, but I do know Phil Hawes.
Yeah, he's the only one I do know.
He's a big boy. He's like one of those guys that's right on the verge of, breaking big on a fighters fan level. But he's just that one fight away. And he's like a big boy. Like he looks like he can make 205.
Yeah, for sure.
On the prelims, we have Marina Rodriguez versus Verna Jadribo. Chaos Williams. Remember Chaos Williams with that kick that went viral? He versus Rolando Bedioya. We got Kennedy Nazkuru versus Devin Clark. Drew Dober versus Matt Frivola. Any of those fights interest y'all?
Definitely Chaos Williams.
Chaos Williams is the type of guy, like, if he doesn't go all out, then he might have a boring fight. He's like a hit or miss because I want to say he's lost his last couple fights, or maybe his last fight, or he might have got back on the winning track recently.
Yeah, he's one of those fighters I've been looking at. Had nice KOs, KO'd people stiff. Had a lot of hard fights lately, but you can tell he's promising because he sticks in the fight and doesn't necessarily get destroyed by the opponent. So and he hasn't fought in a while, so who knows? He may have been in the lab and we might see a amazing fight from him.
Yeah, but exactly 1 year since he fought last. It was a loss. He only has 3 losses in his career, and they've all been a decision.
Yeah, they've been hard fights.
I remember they showed that kick it was on Sports Center and everything, and I think he followed that up with a loss, if I'm not mistaken.
And I don't know if it's because of that kick, but his style reminds me of Showtime Pettis, and some of them crazy kicks.
Well, he's going to be on ESPN. That's what the prelims are showing. So this is definitely a fight where he needs to show and prove. So we'll see how that turns out. So let's make our way to the main card. Let's get into it, fellas. Y'all talked about it earlier. The curtain jerker on this is Kron Gracie versus Charles Jourdain. Who you got?
I'm going with Gracie on this one. He's had plenty of time off to prepare for this, kind of get straight. As Steve mentioned, he did gas out in his last fight, so I'm sure he's worked on that. He's the son of Rickson Gracie family. They're an institution in MMA. Kron is he's the underdog in this fight, though. He's not expected to win.
I'll have to go for Kron Gracie. Just because I heard of in the Gracie family was a passing. And some people come stiff when they come to fight night, but I think this may be motivation for him to win this fight.
I mixed the Gracies up. I can't remember if it's Kron or the other Gracie. Well, they all are, jiu-jitsu, the Gracie family. I can't remember if it was him or another Gracie that it's either try to get him on the ground for the submission or bust. It might have been Kron, but Charles Jourdain is coming off of 2 losses. And believe it or not, Kron Gracie only has 6 MMA fights.
Yeah, but he has a lot of grappling experience, more than average.
He's got 50 grappling contests. Man, I think I'm going to go with Kron Gracie too, because I don't know a lot about Charles Jourdain. So give me Kron Gracie. We all got Kron Gracie in that. Next fight, we've got Movsar Evloev versus Diego Lopez. Movsar, he's a Russian guy. He trains with ATT. He's undefeated. He was supposed to originally go against Bryce Mitchell in this fight. Bryce Mitchell had to pull out. I don't know if the injury is still undisclosed. I never followed up with it, but he's injured. So it's kind of a letdown because I think this was Movsar's breakout time. I think it was a showcase fight for him, and UFC wanted to show him off because even Dana White broke the news of Bryce Mitchell being off the card. Featherweight, that's his division, always waiting for its next star. I think I'm going to go with Movsar in this fight. Who y'all got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same here. Diego Lopez, this is his first fight in the UFC. He was a champion outside of the UFC, but, first fight nerves against a guy that, heavy wrestling. Yeah, I'm with you on this one.
Same here. We're going to have to agree. I haven't necessarily seen both of them fight, but since you mentioned heavy wrestling, yeah, it's hard to beat. That's a standard tool. So, yeah, I have to agree with that.
Next fight, we got Miss Jessica Andrade versus Yan Xiaonan. Jessica Andrade is a fighter that's always on. Well, she's the former champion, so I can't say always on the precipice, but that was kind of a fluke win, I think, that she got over Rose. She's kind of been bouncing back and forth between 125 and 115.
Yeah, and Jessica's coming off of a loss. She lost to Erin Blanchfield not too long ago, like 3 months ago. So she's fresh off a loss.
KO, was that a KO or a submission?
She got submitted, rear naked choke.
Yeah. Well, just looking at it, I think she's you don't know if she's going to be good that night or just you think she's going to win and get caught. Like, if you're getting submitted and knocked out, I mean, I'm not too sure to put a bet on her. I'll go for, what was her name again?
It is Yan Xiaonan.
Xiaonan. I'll go for her.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got some impressive wins on here. I was just looking at her record. She's beat Claudia Gadelha. She's beat Angela Hill, who's one of my favorite female fighters. But she's lost to Carla Esparza and Rodriguez. Did you go on mute, EJ?
The mic.
My bad. So, Steve, you got Yan, Admire, you got Andrade.
Yep. Give me her.
I am gonna take Jessica as well. Is this at 115 or is it at 125? I want to say this is it's strawweight, so it's at 115. It's at 115. I mean, I feel like this is a high risk fight for Jessica. I don't know how much she gets if she wins this fight. How much out of it if she wins this fight?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at too. I was like, man, Jessica's ranked number 4 and the other girl's ranked number 6. If Jessica wins, I mean, there's still, where does she go?
I mean, she could. I feel like I don't know. Did she fight Alexa Grasso yet? I feel like she might be better suited in that going back to that flyweight division.
No, she hasn't fought Grasso yet, I don't think.
But she just lost to the Aaron, that young fighter. Yeah, I don't know where she goes after this. Because who's the champion? Wei Lee's the champion at 115.
Right.
And Wei Lee knocked her out right after she won the title.
Yeah, she hasn't fought Grasso yet.
So yeah, she might be better suited going back up to 125. I don't know. Everybody, if y'all don't recall, if y'all remember, she was at 135 or 1.2 fighting up there. So she's an interesting fighter. She always puts on bangers. She goes out there, but I think she leaves herself open to be beaten as well a lot. So
yeah, she's kind of like the Chuck Liddell of the women's.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, I guess. The Iceman. That takes us to the co-main event. Bilal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns. This fight wasn't supposed to happen, but now it's happening. Gilbert Burns taking this fight on like 2 weeks or a week notice. Interesting fight, man. Bilal Muhammad's been on a 9-fight winning streak, something crazy. And he feels like the UFC is kind of jerking him around with giving him that title fight. If he wins this fight, you think he might get that title shot that he's been waiting for?
Man, I like this fight though. Gilbert Burns always puts on good fights. I think his only 2 losses were like Usman and Kazmat. He's got some other losses early in his career, but yeah, his 2 most recent losses was Kazmat and Usman, who 1A, 1B. Let's see.
He's on an 8-fight winning streak with 1 no contest against Leon Edwards. You remember that eye poke?
The eye poke, yeah. Yeah, and he's recently beat Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, Lima.
Luque, Brady.
Man, this is going to be a good fight.
Who you got?
Give me Burns just because I think he's still pissed off about wanting a title fight and all that.
So you got Burns. What do you think about this fight, Steve?
I'm gonna have to go with Burns because you can say they're both good fighters, but as far as intensity, how that heart came out with that Chaz map, I'm gonna have to go with Gilbert. Wade throws a punch, has grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all the above, to where we haven't seen too many dominant wins for Muhammad. So I'm gonna have to go with Burns.
Man, I kind of want to be the contrarian and pick Muhammad, but I feel like Burns, he's still in fight mode because he just fought a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I want to say fucking pick Muhammad. Nah, I gotta go with Burns. Give me Gilbert Burns. Give me Gilbert Burns as well.
That's a good point. He's still fresh as far as cardio.
So Burns wins. You think he might get that title shot against Leon Edwards?
I think so.
I would say, but
that was probably part of him jumping in to cover the fight. Hey, I'll jump in and cover this fight, but if I win, I get the title shot.
I can say, yeah, I can agree. Because I even heard talks of Kazmat fighting Usman is in the talks. So I don't know. Maybe throw that in there and see if how Dana's trying to maneuver those fights into a championship fight, but we'll see. I don't know.
I think it's all bad matchups for Edwards. He may prove me wrong. I don't think the Kobe fight may go well for him. Fight Gilbert Burns, I don't think that may go well for him. But I mean, he's on a crazy fight streak, so who knows?
With Edwards being a champ, it kind of reminds me of when Bisping was middleweight champ. It's kind of like everybody in the top 5 could just smoke you, and you got lucky and just won that belt.
I don't know if it's. I see your comparison. I don't know if it's quite Bisping because Bisping was old. Edwards is, pretty much in his prime, but like you said, it seems like everybody in the top 5 would beat him. But he proved me wrong. I didn't think he was going to win that second Usman fight, but he won it.
Yeah, he shocked us all.
So we'll see how things shake out in that welterweight division, which brings us to the main event. Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling versus the returning Henry the Messenger Cejudo. Man, what do y'all think about this fight, man? It kind of came out of nowhere. Cejudo coming back out of retirement.
Yeah. It came out of nowhere, and I'm torn on this fight. It's great. It's gonna be a good fight, but I can't decide who I want to win because I want Cejudo to kind of complete his legacy, and what is this? His 3rd weight class that he would be champ at. Never been done before.
Nah, he had the bantamweight belt before he gave it up.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's kind of like the return of GSP. Cejudo's been gone for a little bit, and he's coming back straight into a title fight. But I also like this run that Sterling's on. I think Sterling's a great champ. He's beat the who's who,
So with that being said, who do you have in this fight?
I'm not going to decide yet. Come back to me on who I pick. I want to see what Steven throws out there and see if I can maybe lean one way or the other.
You're right. Sterling's been he proved me wrong with the Yan rematch, the way he got down. You know what? Speaking of it, Sterling came back and proved he can win. And also Henry Cejudo proved he came back after a dominant but the only difference is that first fight with Aljamain and Yan was a foul. But just trying to comparison how these are 2 fighters that came back from losing and it came back to achieve. Plus Henry Cejudo, way he in the middle of a fight looked like he was gonna lose and changed the game up and won. Plus everybody likes to see what do you call that? The regular person versus the giant. I'm gonna have to go for Cejudo because there's too many times I said he would lose and he didn't, and nobody likes to be wrong on a person. So I'm gonna have to go with Cejudo just for the factor, even though I know Aljamain is a factor and completely can win too.
Ooh, okay. He's got Cejudo. What say you, Admire?
I'm going with Cejudo because I think he's going to be well prepared. He don't want to come back just to get embarrassed and lose. And that's all I'm basing it on is he doesn't want to come back and get embarrassed. And maybe Sterling maybe took his foot off the gas a little bit because he's had so many wins, in a row. Maybe he's relaxed. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying maybe he is. And that's what I'm betting on. My guess. That is completely uneducated.
So we got 2 for Cejudo. I'm not going to bet against Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master. Ring rust is real unless you're Dominic Cruz or John Jones. Cejudo's been out of the game for 3 years. You might have a little bit of ring rust. I mean, it's one thing sparring, it's one thing being there with live rounds. So Sterling, he beat Dillashaw, even though it was a little bit fluky because Dillashaw went in there injured like an idiot. He's got 2 wins over Jan, even though one was by DQ. Beat Sandhagen, beat Pedro Munoz, Rivera. He also beat what's his name? Cody Stamen. Give me the Funkmaster. I think it's gonna be by decision. I don't think he's gonna finish him or anything, but it's gonna be a good fight.
Man, you're talking about ring rust, but I gotta say, look at GSP, man. He came back, and him and Cejudo, similar fighters.
He cherry picked off of Bisbang being the champion.
Nah.
If GSP would have did that against Yoel Romero, I was like, okay. But if he came back against almost retired Bisbang, not to take anything away from GSP, but Bisbang wasn't the scariest dude at the time.
Right. I get it.
We'll see how it plays out.
It's gonna be a fun fight to watch for sure. I mean, I can see it going to a decision and just being a war.
Yeah. I don't really see anybody finishing each other. I think they'll cancel each other out in a lot of the disciplines. But we all know Cejudo is known as the king of cringe. Did any of y'all see any of the antics following up to this fight?
No, haven't seen any of it.
I haven't.
Jay, you got that video for us?
Yeah, let me figure this out with the whole fuckery that happened right before we went live. I do have it. Let me see if I can pull this one.
Okay, so to describe for people not looking at us on Twitch, Henry Cejudo and Aljamain Sterling had a little bit of a face-off before the pre-fight press conference. I think it happened today or yesterday. And like I said, Cejudo is known as the king of cringe, and he lived up to his name.
There we go.
What a nerd.
So for all the listeners that aren't watching on Twitch and are listening on podcast form, Henry Cejudo comes out on stage with one of those baby characters that you put on your hip with Aljamain Sterling on the face of a fake baby doll, and he kicks it out into the crowd.
Yep, that's cringy as fuck.
Intimidating or cringy? You just said it's cringy. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, by this time it's expected. He's done that, twice now?
So y'all think he's doing this on purpose, or you think that it's on accident, that it's just him, or you think he's like leaning into the fact that people call him cringe?
Definitely on purpose.
Yeah, pretty on. I think he's just, he probably did some dumb shit early on and was like, okay, now I got to play it off and just do even cringier shit so people realize that I'm playing, like when you tell a bad joke and you're like, oh, I was just playing, guys,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what he's doing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
He kind of worked himself into a shoot. He wanted all that money from UFC. He's like, if y'all don't give me the money I want, I'm gonna retire. UFC is like, all right, go ahead, retire. And he's been out of the game for 3 years. So
Hey, kind of like a Nganou situation.
yeah, pretty much. But he's back, and hopefully it's a banger this weekend. But before we get out of here, just wanted to look at some of the odds for this fight. We'll just talk about the top 3 fights. Andrade is a minus 190. Xiaonan's a plus 160. Muhammad's plus 105. Burns is a minus 125. Aljamain Sterling and Cejudo is a pick 'em basically. Sterling is minus 105 and Cejudo is he's a minus 115. So it's a lot of close fights as far as the odd goes. Would you press your luck on any of those, Admire?
I don't think I'm going to touch any bets on this one. I think the 3 fights there are just all so close that they could go either way. I mean, you just have to get lucky to be able to pick all 3 on this, because I guarantee you one of them's going to be, one-sided, and it's like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
I might parlay something this weekend, but I think I'll make that decision on the day of the fight, but we'll see. Anything else you guys got on the plate before we get out of here?
Boxing this weekend. Canelo's fighting, Cinco de Mayo is always a big card. I guess it'll be the 6th of May when they actually fight, but Cinco de Mayo weekend, it's traditionally boxing weekend. So we got Canelo.
Anything for you, Steve, this weekend?
No, not too much. Not too much other than the card.
All right. Well, that's it for us, and we will be back to break all of this down Sunday morning. So tune back into us on Twitch TV. And until next time, be safe out there. Peace.
Yeah, Conor McGregor, you're taking everything I work for. I'm gonna fight you.